What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Week 4 Thursday Night Football Showdown preview for DraftKings. Obviously, we're going to talk about all kinds of strategies, so you can use some of this stuff for FanDuel as well. I am Christian Hardy, at myhardy on Twitter from locksdfs.com, and I'm with my friend Adi, who missed the last Thursday Night video.
Sorry.
At really Adi on Twitter.
Casino was calling, bro. Casino was calling.
he went to Blackhawk to play some poker, ran it up a little bit. So, all right. We're back here together. Don't forget, obviously, we start out every video by telling you that if you comment, whether it be your favorite play, whether you disagree with something we say in the video, maybe be your favorite GPP play, favorite captain on these Showdown videos, whatever it might be, your opinion on the game, leave a comment and leave a like. Also, be sure to subscribe. Not only does it help us out, but we give away a free season pass to a sport of your choice every single week. So Adi is going to announce that right now for last week.
Yep. So last week's winner we're gonna go with Craig Elder. Left a nice comment underneath my Addy's action video, and so Craig, just go ahead and send us a DM at LocksDFS on Twitter, and we'll get you hooked up with a NFL season pass.
Very cool. All right. So with that said, we have what is the total here? It's 46. It's dropped from 47.5 to 46. The Green Bay Packers are home favorites by 5 points against the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's go ahead and just start at the top, which is what we usually do. Just talking about kind of our favorite captains. And for me, in cash games, my favorite captain is going to be Davante Adams, guy who is actually tied with Marquez Valdes-Scantling in targets so far this year, but is very high on the Josh Hermsmeyer buy low air yards model. And also just, a guy who should regress touchdown-wise, a guy who led the league in touchdowns last year, receiving touchdowns last year. Doesn't have one yet, has had 3 really tough matchups, gets a really good spot here against the Eagles, who have pretty much non-existent corners, and even their top corner, Ronald Darby, is out in this game. So it's going to be even messier than it's been before. If you're not captaining Davante Adams, I think you'd agree, Addy, that he's basically got to be a lock in your lineup. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a real interesting slate in the sense that, he has to be a lock in your lineup if you're playing, he just has to be a lock in your lineup. This is as good of a matchup as it gets for Davante Adams and this whole pass game in general. But also, if you just look at the numbers, man, these numbers are so eerily similar between Davante Adams and Marquez Valdes-Scantling as far as, targets go, air yards as well. Everything is so similar that it sets up well in tournaments if you do want to fade Davante Adams, because he's going to be probably the highest owned player on the slate, I would guess, maybe right next to Aaron Rodgers. But at least from what we've seen through 3 games, his role looks just like Marquez Valdes-Scantling. In fact, the Eagles are worse to perimeter wide receivers, and Marquez Valdes-Scantling runs, 25% more of his routes, from the perimeter. So awesome spot for both these guys. But, Davante Adams is going to be my preferred captain. And if he's not in my captain spot, he's going to make my lineup. But if he makes it, I'm sure Rodgers and MVS will as well. I just feel like you kind of have to get these guys in. It's as good of a pass game spot, as it gets.
There's no smash value guys I'm considering for the captain. So basically my next captain is just gonna probably be Aaron Rodgers, and again, a nut matchup. Other than maybe the Philadelphia defensive line creating some pressure, Rodgers really just has a cake spot here. If you're going with Rodgers, it's really, like we talked about, I think Adams is going to be the most popular captain. So if you're going with Rodgers in the captain spot, it's probably going to be more GPP oriented. Not saying Rodgers won't be owning captain spot. He will be for sure. And if you are going to go with Rodgers captain spot, just kind of correlate that, you know what to kind of do. If you've been playing DFS, and if you don't, it's pretty simple in these showdowns. You're going to correlate, just go with Rodgers in the captain spot. I can build something right here since I have it pulled up. Rodgers in the captain spot, something like Davante. You want 2 of these receivers, though. It's basically what the point is. It could be Rodgers and MVS. I'm pretty much going to have almost all of Davante Adams exposure. So it could be Adams, and it could be Geronimo Allison, who is, the very clearly the third wide receiver behind MVS. But it could even be because, some people might not be on Jimmy Graham at all because he's been banged up, and he probably is going to linger into this. It probably is going to linger a bit into this week, but he's very cheap, for a stack option. And he's a guy who, at the beginning of the year, I think I think actually in that first showdown, which he actually ended up being a pretty good play on that first showdown because he caught a touchdown. Something we said on that video was this is a year where Jimmy Graham should regress touchdown wise. He had so many red zone targets last year that he should have more this year because of just his target share. So if he is healthy and he's good to go, it's a very good Jimmy Graham price. And it's a very good play in a Rodgers stack. And those are my top two captains for sure on this slate. I think, Green Bay's got a pretty good defense, and I think that Philadelphia, I think they're really going to struggle to run the ball for sure. Their offensive line is also one of their guards is banged up as well. He's going to miss the game. I'm forgetting who it is off the top of my head. But Green Bay's defensive line, front seven, very good. They're going to create a lot of pressure. I'm not too keen on getting the Eagles in captain spots other than GBP. But let's go ahead and just move on from those guys. What's kind of your feeling on one decision you're going to have to make? I think because you're probably going to Adams and Rodgers in cash games. I think when I was building, a lot of the time I had to decide like Ertz or Wentz. Where do you kind of stand on that? Where do you stand on Ertz with also on Jeffrey back? What's kind of your opinion on the Eagles passing game, I guess?
I'm really interested in Ertz. I think people are going to be off of him a bit because they're going to see Alshon coming back, taken away from because he got 16 targets versus Atlanta, a matchup that filters targets towards the tight end. Not so much the same with Detroit. It was a really tough matchup, but we were expecting at least double-digit targets. So only getting 7 targets, that's going to deter a lot of people. Zach Ertz was over 55% in cash games on DK last week. So a lot of people saw him put up an average game, and I'm probably not going to go back to him on a showdown slate with Alshon back. But I like this matchup a lot. Also, people are going to look at the fact that Green Bay has been really good versus tight ends the past 3 games. But it's important to know who they've been playing. First matchup, Chicago, Trey Burton was out. Adam Shaheen was the tight end. He's not a receiving weapon, so that obviously makes sense. Next game, Minnesota, Kirk Cousins only throws the ball 21 times a game, and Kyle Rudolph is at the very bottom of that pecking order, so that makes sense. And then Denver, who has Noah Fant and Jeff Heuerman. They don't really throw the ball to their tight end too much either. Just no imposing tight ends that they faced. Nothing like Zach Ertz. So this is kind of shaping up for me to be a pretty – hopefully he comes in low-owned, but fairly low-owned smash spot for Zach Ertz. I think this is a great spot for him. Green Bay's got good corners. They got a good pass rush. It's set up for these middle-of-the-field, medium A-dot targets. So, a guy like Zach Ertz could totally just go off in this and the fact that he's 1,000 more than Alshon Jeffrey, and about 1,400 more, I think, than Nelson Aguilar. He's going to keep his ownership lower than it should be.
For sure, I agree. Yeah, I was going to say on Ertz too. He's another guy who popped up in the air yards model, which is always like a positive to know for someone.
For sure.
I think he was like top 5 in the air yards model this week as well. So both those guys, Adams and Ertz, are both guys who, based on their target share, based on their weighted opportunity rating, which Ertz, as you can see, he has the highest weighted opportunity rating. Besides Jackson, who is obviously out in this game. So, yeah, I love Ertz as well, and I think he makes a ton of sense. But like I said, if you're playing Rodgers and Adams, you're pretty much making a decision between Wentz and Ertz, unless we get some very surprising Jimmy Graham injury news or something like that. You basically got to just be deciding on that. So, I think there's validity to both because Wentz most likely will be chasing in this game. I do expect Philadelphia, who already favors the pass, I think that they will definitely be even more pass heavy in this game against the Green Bay team that is probably going to get ahead because they're going to pass with ease and they got one of the best quarterbacks in the league. So hopefully that is enough on those guys. I am not too excited about Aaron Jones, especially not at this price. I think he's only a GBP play. Obviously, we talked about how good the Philly front seven is, and we also talked about actually haven't mentioned this, the fact that week 2, LaFleur came out and was kind of saying like, Aaron Jones is a running back 1, but that said, we want to keep his snaps limited. And then last week, I don't know if I have it pulled up. I do have it pulled up. We saw Aaron Jones only play 39% of the snaps. And, of course, he got the start. But it's just I don't think you can play a guy who is going to play like 50% of the snaps. And I'm sure down the stretch when they need to get wins, he'll be playing more. But right now, it's just not a spot where you're going to play him. And, of course, like I said, the matchup plays into that as well. So he's just not really a cash play for me. Of course, you can play him in GBPs, but I just don't think the snap share is there for me to be interested in him. Alshon Jeffrey is a little interesting to me only because I think his price is not adjusted for a wide receiver 1 role in this offense. What do you think about Alshon?
Right. So Alshon's interesting. Yeah, I agree. His price isn't adjusted as far as his role, which definitely makes him in play. There's some question marks about, how effective he's going to be coming off coming off a calf injury, which typically aren't the easiest injuries to just like bounce back from. They're easily re-aggravatable, if that's a word. Easily to re-aggravate, easy to re-aggravate an injury like that. So definitely not definitely some concerns there, but he's an underpriced wide receiver one. Essentially what these showdown slates come down to, just to kind of piggyback on what you're talking about with the Green Bay run game, is you have to figure out how you think this game plays. If you're playing one lineup, you have to figure out the most likely way that you see this game, out of the range of outcomes of this game, you got to pick which one you think is most likely and correlate your team around that. If you're playing one lineup, if you're playing multiple lineups, you want to cover all sort of the whole range of outcome that you believe. And so one of the range of outcomes is definitely like Green Bay taking a fairly commanding lead versus a banged up Philly defense, and sort of just salting the game away with Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams. So if I'm playing one of them, I'm sort of more tempted to play both of them, just because that's the game script that you're relying on. And if they're going to share targets, they're going to share carries, they're going to share I don't think they're sharing goal line looks. I think that's pretty much Aaron Jones's territory. But they're just going to share snaps like as evenly as they are. Then it makes sense to run both of them if that's the game script you believe. Maybe even pair it with a really underrated Packers defense on this slate. I mean, it's not like I would ever really recommend playing a defense when you only have 6 positions to choose from. But you saw it work out with the Bears. 1 defensive touchdown. And you're set. You're good. So that's all you really need. And I mean, we've seen this Phillies offensive line struggle. We've seen Carson Wentz throw his fair share of interceptions, and we've seen this Green Bay defensive line generate a ton of pressure. So it's just sort of like picking which way you think the game will go. I'd be currently more inclined to lead to a decently high-scoring game. I think the pass weapons on both sides. But obviously the Green Bay side, I think, get there. But I think the Philly side probably gets there as well. And then the Green Bay running back situation, looking at it objectively, is still murky and probably not a situation you want to go to outside of, like, multiple lineups.
I feel the same way, and that's kind of moving down in pricing now a little bit. But the same way about the Eagles running backs. I think the only one that you can kind of look at is Darren Sproles, but it's kind of gross because he's still only going to get, like, 25% of the snaps probably. But the other 2 are too expensive. Jordan Howard took a goal line to the end zone last week. Like, it's just too hard in this matchup to really get too interested in the Philadelphia running back. So I think they're only GPP plays. We talked about Marquez Valdes-Scantling. I actually think he's a very, very good play on this slate. Obviously, I think the most likely script is Green Bay just opens it up and passes with ease against this Eagles defense. And Valdes-Scantling has the same amount of targets as Davante Adams. They were talking about him all year, all preseason, not all year, about, how good this guy's going to be this year, that he's going to be the real number 2. And, a lot of people drafted him high in fantasy football drafts because of that, and it's shown to be true. Of course, like I said, I do think that we're going to see Davante Adams touchdown regress, but, Valdes-Scantling hasn't had a ton himself. One thing that you said, the over, I kind of like the under, and the reason is just because both these teams have been really slow. They're like bottom 12 in pace, both of them this year. And a lot of that could be who Green Bay is playing, but I do think that in general they're going to play pretty slow. And the Eagles like the pass, but I do think Green Bay is going to play a pretty balanced offense this year. I mean, we've seen it with Aaron Rodgers so far. Like, he's not throwing the ball that much this year. I mean, 34 times is max. Again, like, I think some of that is matchup based. For sure. I mean, Denver, Minnesota, Chicago, those aren't really matchups that you're going to try to be passing the ball a ton. And all those matchups are also matchups that are probably going to end up being paced down. But I do think that in general, they want to stay balanced. I also think they're not going to run fast.
I agree with that. I think in general, there's reason to be sour on this whole Green Bay passing game. Like, I don't think Davante Adams is going to have this easily the best wide receiver in the league type season, just because Matt LaFleur clearly wants to run the ball. It's clearly like the emphasis he has on this, or the emphasis he wants to have on this offense. He wants to protect Aaron Rodgers. He wants to control the clock, and he wants to run the ball.
And he wants to protect the boy Aaron Jones too.
Right. So it's just like, with that being said, that's why this sets up as a really good GPP sort of slate, because you can really take a stand on these Green Bay running backs and just be like, I think this is how the game goes. And I think and because I don't feel strongly about the over at all. And I don't feel really strong. I think it's a good line, 46, and dropping a little bit.
So do I.
I don't really feel particularly strong about the over or the under. I think it comes in around 46. But if you do feel like Green Bay wins this, and and you think they're going to cover, then you should bet the under. You should bet the Green Bay spread.
Aguilar, just a GBP play, too expensive. He's just priced up because his target share went so far up on Jeffrey. He's going to still play snaps in this game for sure. He's going to be the wide receiver too. So he's just, I wouldn't say that if you're playing a bunch of GBPs that you have to fade him, but I do think that his price just isn't right on this slate. We talked about Sanders not really touching the Philadelphia running backs. Those are like the last guys I'd get to in GBPs, to be honest with you. I do have a little bit of interest in Jamal Williams because, we saw him play 60% of the snaps last week. He, both these guys catch a decent amount of passes. We see with 8 targets through weeks, it's 3.5 or wait, what is that? 2.6 a week. He's getting a decent amount of targets, and he's 4K less than Jones. So in terms of cash games, I have more interest in Jamal than Jones, especially just because it looks like it's going to be a straight snap split for now. And I don't know how to develop, but more interested in Jamal. Do you want to say anything about Jamal?
I think my take is sort of the same on both those guys. Just been what I've been saying. If you think that's how the game goes, then you can have exposure to either one of them.
Yeah.
I guess
the thing that sucks about Jamal is that he's not going to get goal line touches most likely.
Right, and that's really what you want.
Yeah,
I think the Philly situation is kind of interesting because you could definitely luck box a Jordan Howard touchdown, and he got 11 carries. Again, you just have to you're just banking on the game script of Philly taking the lead if you're playing Jordan Howard. But I do prefer the pass-catching running backs, which would be Darren Sproles and Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders, it sucks he fumbled twice last week because those were the issues he had in college with fumbling. And now that since they're so deep in the running back position, you feel like any sort of slip-up, it's easy to put him on the bench. But he did lead him in air yards, lead the running backs in air yards. I mean, Darren Sproles just hasn't been used as a receiving back as much as you'd want him to. He's only got 7 targets on the entire year. And for Darren Sproles, that's really low. Miles Sanders, though, he got 4 targets last week, 4 targets the week before. And this Green Bay team has given up I think they've given up the most running back catches in the league. So it's definitely a spot for a pass-catching running back to get there. If you think it's Miles Sanders, which I think it is, then I think he makes sense as a GPP play because he's still got 13 carries. It's not a small amount of carries, but, if he gets, 16 touches somehow, 13 carries, 3 catches, or maybe 17 touches, he's not priced. He's priced a lot cheaper than a guy like, I don't know, Nelson Aguilar or, even like a Marquez Valdez-Scantling, someone who might get, 8 targets and catch 6 of them, 6 touches versus 17. It's just, it's worth thinking about, but primarily for GPPs. I think cash game, the sort of roster construction is fairly straightforward.
Where would you stand on if you were going to play one or have more exposure to one in GPPs, Graham versus Allison?
I would like to read more about Graham and make sure. I know he doesn't have an injury.
Let's assume that he will. I mean, even in week 1, did he get injured in the middle of the week 1 game? Because his snaps are only at 55%. So.
Oh, really? In week 1, he only played.
Did he get injured in the middle of that game, or did he get injured at the beginning of week 2?
I can't. No, I don't think it was that. I feel like it might have been before week 1. I can't recall.
Oh no. Look, he's got 1 target week 2 and 3.
So you think it was after week 1?
I'm honestly lost on that. But
there it is.
Regardless, you got it.
He had a finger injury prior to week 1 and then a groin injury after that.
Okay. So he's been playing through the groin injury. That's why he hasn't really been playing much. But it's concerning in that week 1 that he only played 50% of the snaps.
Yeah, I think. So. What's Allison's snap count look like?
I can check on that. I'll just go to.
I think he was like 55% last week.
46% total, and I can look at last week. 46% last week, 46% total.
Man, I think I'd probably just. I wouldn't really want either, but
I think both only make sense in like a Rodgers captain stack. Kind of.
Yeah, I think I'd probably just go with Jimmy Graham and pray for a touchdown.
Yeah.
I'm
with you. I'm with you too. He had a higher weighted opportunity rating in week 1 as well. Graham did so. Just seems like weighted opportunity rating factors in that the touchdown possibility. So obviously both kickers are going to be in play here in cash games. They're very cheap and they're going to allow you to pay up at other options. or other positions. Because of the news about Graham being fine, pretty much takes the Tanyan play out of possibilities. Mercedes Lewis out of possibilities. Really, we're left with, we talked about Darren Sproles. Adi already kind of touched on him. I don't think we need to touch more, but I do think we should talk a little bit real quick about Mac Hollins.
Mm-hmm.
Will play as the wide receiver 3-4. I think he'll play more as a wide receiver 3 ahead of Arcega-Whiteside because of his production recently. Arcega-Whiteside has been an absolute ghost when he's on the field. So I think they're going to probably run Hollins as the direct replacement to Djax. That's not at all, it doesn't seem set in stone to me, and I haven't read anything about that. Look, right there in the RotoWire news blurb, it says Hollins expected to work ahead of JJ Arcega-Whiteside in Thursday's game against the Packers. So Hollins is the most interesting value play on the slate.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. I think because when you look at these showdowns, you want to look at kickers and who's priced around kickers and who you can deviate with. That's really one of the most important decisions you make on every showdown slate, deciding whether the value in that range is better than the kickers. And in this case, I do think it is. I prefer Matt Collins here just because, again, I have questions about Alshon Jeffrey being back to full speed. And Matt Collins, I mean, he played, I think, 93%.
He played all the snaps last week.
He played 93% of the snaps last week. And he looked good. I mean, he looked explosive. He looked fast. He had good hands. He had a decent game.
Over the last 2 weeks, obviously we're gonna get Alshon Jeffrey back, but last 2 weeks, 18% target share, 44% weighted opportunity rating.
Right, and I mean that's no joke for 2,400. So
yeah,
I like him a lot especially if you're building around what should be the most common build, which is heavy exposure to the Green Bay pass game, and then ran back with pretty heavy exposure to the Philly pass game. If you're banking on Green Bay taking a 2-touchdown lead and kind of maintaining that, or so a touchdown to 2-touchdown lead, then they're going to be running a lot of 3 wide receiver sets. And, he's going to be out there. So
my first cash build, and it's the only team I really landed on that I feel really good about so far in cash games, does have Matt Collins. I'll give you that piece of information. So
yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah.
Especially, and that was actually before I read that RotoWire thing about him running ahead of Arcega-Whiteside. I was just guessing that was going to happen, and once I see that, I'm sure that came from a reputable source or a coach or something. So Zach Burnham of the Athletic Report. So yeah, once I know that, it's almost like he's very, very interesting to me.
Yeah.
And after that, there's just no one really. Now that we know Arcega-Whiteside is a wide receiver 4, not interested. Dallas Goedert's going to play snaps, but like 1,000.
He only played last week because they were so banged up.
Yeah.
And he dropped. He played 9 snaps and he dropped a wide open touchdown in the end zone. Couldn't have been more wide open.
Well, yeah.
And so it's just I don't think he's really got that much of a role. He's a guy who you would love to play on this showdown slate, because he got a good chance of catching a touchdown last year. But this year, I just don't think you can go there. It's kind of gross in the sub Mac Hollins range,
Right. Okay. Well, that's probably going to wrap it up for us. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget, of course, we talked about at the beginning of the video. Leave a comment, leave a like, and subscribe. You'll have a chance to win a free season pass. Comment with your favorite GBP play. Comment with your favorite captain, whatever it might be. If it's someone you disagree with, maybe you want to play Miles Sanders. So throw that in the comments. Whatever it might be, throw it in there. You'll have a chance to win that free season pass. Thank you guys so much for watching. We really appreciate it. Check us out at locksdfs.com as well. Our NFL pass, we have month options as well. So go check that out, locksdfs.com. I'm at ByHardy on Twitter. Adi is at ReallyAdi. And for us, that's it. We will see you guys with our cash and GBP videos later in the week. See you guys then. Thank you guys for watching.
Peace.